Ethan Cole was a human engineer who had spent the last 2 years working on the alien world of Veyara. It was a world unlike Earth, mountains carved from crystal, forests that shimmered under two suns, and cities that seemed to grow rather than be built. The Veyari people had lived here for thousands of years, shaping their world with patience and precision. To them, humans were newcomers, strange and curious creatures who had only recently begun stepping beyond their home system. Ethan had been part of a joint research program, one that allowed humans and Veyari to share knowledge. He had been selected because of his knack for problem solving and his ability to remain calm under stress. At first, the Veyari treated him with polite distance, as if watching an animal that had wandered into their halls. But over time, Ethan earned a place among them. The one who grew closest to him was Liara. Liara was a Veyari scientist with a sharp mind and quiet grace. Her skin seemed to reflect light like polished stone, and faint patterns glowed along her arms whenever she was focused. Her eyes, deep silver with faint blue sparks, always carried a sense of calm. She had a way of making silence feel comfortable, which was rare among the Veyari, who valued precision and efficiency in every conversation. To Ethan, she was not just a colleague but a friend. They shared long nights in the laboratory, adjusting machines, debating theories, or simply sitting in quiet companionship as the crystals of Veyara's night sky glimmered overhead. But nothing prepared him for what she said that evening. The laboratory was quiet, the humming of machines the only sound. Ethan had just finished recalibrating a scanner when Liara walked in. Her movements were slower than usual, deliberate, as though each step carried weight. "Ethan," she said softly, her voice carrying that strange melodic tone unique to her species. He looked up from his work. "Yeah, what's wrong?" Liara hesitated. It was unusual, she was never hesitant. She always spoke with clarity. That alone made Ethan put down his tools. She clasped her hands together, the faint glow along her skin pulsing in rhythm with her heartbeat. "It is the season." "The season?" Ethan raised an eyebrow. "You mean like a weather cycle?" "No," her eyes locked onto his. "It is our mating season. For my kind, it requires a partner." Ethan froze. The words hit him like a wave. He blinked, unsure if he had heard correctly. "Wait, you're saying—" "Yes?" Liara took a steady breath. "I have chosen you." For a long moment, Ethan could only stare. His mind scrambled for meaning. She had to be joking, right? Maybe this was one of those cultural misunderstandings. The Veyari had countless traditions and words that carried meanings beyond human understanding. Maybe mating season meant something ceremonial, like a festival or ritual. "You've chosen me?" he repeated slowly, testing the words. "Yes," she said, her voice firm now, no longer uncertain. "It must be a partner one trusts. A partner who will not fail. You are the one I have chosen." Ethan's mouth went dry. He wanted to laugh it off, but her silver blue gaze told him she was serious. "Liara, I don't think I understand what this means. Are you saying what I think you're saying?" Liara tilted her head as if studying him. "Your people often misunderstand our words. Let me explain." She stepped closer, her voice lowering into a calm rhythm, almost like she was teaching. "For us, this season is not optional. It is part of our biology. If a Veyari does not find a partner during this time, the imbalance within their body grows. The energy we hold begins to fracture. It can harm the mind. Even the life itself," Ethan frowned. "So it's dangerous?" "Yes, we must share resonance with another. It does not have to be of the same species. What matters is trust." He rubbed the back of his neck, his mind racing. "And you think I can do this?" "I'm not even Veyari. That is why I chose you." Her tone carried no hesitation now. "You have stood beside me through storms and failures. You did not leave when mistakes were made. You are constant. That is the kind of partner I need." Ethan's chest tightened. He had never imagined she thought of him that way. To him, he was just trying to keep up in a world where humans were always seen as the weaker ones. He took a deep breath, trying to steady himself. "Liara, I don't know if I can handle something like this. I don't even know what it involves." "You will not be harmed," she assured him. "It is not physical in the way your people think. It is resonance. It is connection. We will share thoughts, emotions, fragments of memory. It requires honesty. It requires closeness." That word, closeness, stuck in Ethan's mind. He swallowed hard. "What happens if I say no?" Liara's glow dimmed slightly, like a flame losing strength. Then I will have to find another. But there is no one else I trust as I trust you." The silence that followed felt heavy. Ethan leaned against the workbench, his mind torn. He had come here to learn, to contribute, to prove that humanity had something valuable to offer. But this was something no training manual had ever prepared him for. Part of him wanted to step back, to say it was impossible. Another part remembered the nights they had shared working side by side, the way Liara had defended him when others doubted his skills, the quiet respect between them. This wasn't just about him. It was about her survival. Finally, he exhaled slowly. I need time to think," Liara nodded. "Of course, but the season has begun. Time is not endless." She turned to leave, her steps soft, her glow faint in the dim laboratory light. Ethan stayed behind, staring at the machines but seeing none of them. His thoughts were a storm, a human, chosen as a partner in an alien ritual that could decide life and death. What did that even mean for him? What did it mean for humanity? He didn't know the answer yet, but one thing was clear. His life on Veyara had just changed forever. Ethan barely slept that night. The alien city outside his window glowed with soft light as crystal towers hummed in harmony. But inside his mind, everything was chaos. Liara's words replayed again and again. "It is our mating season. I have chosen you." He had come to Veyara thinking his biggest challenges would be fixing strange machines, translating alien schematics, and proving that humans weren't useless. But now, he was being asked to take part in a ritual that could decide whether his friend, maybe his closest friend, lived or suffered. He turned on his side, staring at the patterns glowing faintly on the ceiling. Part of him wanted to say no. He wasn't prepared. He wasn't Veyari. What if he made a mistake? But then he remembered the way Liara's glow dimmed when he asked what would happen if he refused. That memory pulled at him, leaving guilt heavy in his chest. The next day, the laboratory was alive with activity. Machines hummed, crystals pulsed with light, and the research team moved with their usual quiet precision. But Ethan noticed something different. Eyes following him, whispers passing between the Veyari. They knew. Liara was working at her station when he walked in. She lifted her gaze, calm as ever, but he saw the faint glow along her skin brighten at his arrival. "You rested?" she asked, her voice soft but steady. "Not much," Ethan admitted. He rubbed the back of his neck. I've been thinking." She studied him carefully, her silver blue eyes showing patience. "And what have you decided?" "I don't know yet," Ethan said honestly. "I don't understand enough. If I'm going to make a choice, I need to know what this really means." Liara nodded. "Then you will know. Come with me." She led him out of the laboratory and through the city. The streets of Veyara were unlike anything on Earth. Bridges of crystal arched above rivers of light. The air hummed faintly as if the world itself was alive. Veyari citizens moved gracefully, their glowing skin casting a soft radiance. Ethan always felt like an outsider here, his plain human form dull among them. But today the stares were different. Not cold, not hostile, but curious. Some whispered in their melodic language. Others tilted their heads, their glowing patterns shifting in surprise. "Do they all know?" Ethan muttered. "Yes," Liara replied simply. "It is not a secret. When one chooses, the choice is spoken. It becomes part of the season." Ethan frowned. "So everyone knows you chose me?" Liara glanced at him, her expression unreadable. Yes, they arrived at a tall crystal hall. Inside, the air felt cooler, quieter, as if every sound was softened by the walls themselves. At the center stood a group of elders, Veyari, whose patterns glowed brighter and steadier than anyone Ethan had seen before. Liara bowed her head respectfully. Ethan followed her lead, awkward but sincere. One of the elders, tall and luminous, stepped forward. His voice was deep and calm, like stone struck by water. "You are the human," Ethan swallowed. "Yes, Ethan Cole." "You have been chosen." "Yes," Ethan said carefully, "but I don't fully understand what that means." The elder's gaze was steady, not unkind. "Then you will be taught." They led him to a chamber filled with glowing crystals. The walls pulsed in rhythm with the elders' voices as they explained. The Veyari mating season was not simply about reproduction. It was about resonance. Their bodies generated energy that grew unstable during this time. Without a partner to stabilize it, the energy turned inward, causing pain and eventual collapse. To share resonance, one elder explained, is to open the self. Thoughts, memories, emotions woven together. It is an act of trust, a bond. Ethan listened, his chest tightening. It wasn't about physical closeness, it was about letting someone into the deepest parts of his mind. Humans guarded their thoughts, their emotions. But here Liara was asking him to open everything. When the session ended, Ethan and Liara walked back in silence. The streets glowed softly around them, but Ethan barely noticed. Finally, he spoke. Liara, are you sure about this? There must be plenty of Vayari who would bond with you. Why me? Liara stopped walking, her silver blue eyes fixed on him, calm but intense. Because you are not like them. You think differently. You are not afraid to question. You see me not only as a scientist or a Vayari, but as... Liara, that matters. Ethan felt a strange warmth in his chest. She trusted him, truly trusted him. And yet that made the weight of the choice even heavier. Over the next few days, whispers grew louder. Some Vayari approached Ethan directly. One scientist frowned at him. Humans are fragile. You cannot withstand resonance. Liara risks too much, another spoke with curiosity. If you succeed, it will change how our people see yours. But failure will bring dishonor. Every word added pressure. Ethan wasn't just deciding for himself anymore. He was carrying humanity's image in alien eyes. At night, he sat alone in his quarters, staring out at the glowing city. Could he really do this? Could he open himself so completely to another being? And yet, the thought of Liara facing the season alone made his stomach twist. One evening, as they worked late in the lab, Ethan finally asked the question that haunted him. Liara, what happens if the bond fails? She paused, her hands stilling over a crystal console. The glow along her skin dimmed. Failure can mean pain, confusion of mind. In rare cases, it can be fatal. Ethan's breath caught. Fatal? Yes, that is why most choose among their own kind. The risk is less. Then why take that risk with me? He asked, his voice almost a whisper. She turned to him, her expression calm but firm. Because I believe in you. Those words settled deep inside him. No one had ever said them with such certainty before. That night, Ethan's decision crystallized. He couldn't walk away. Not from her. Not when she trusted him so deeply. The next morning, he found Liara waiting outside the lab. She looked at him quietly, as if already knowing his choice. I'll do it, Ethan said. His voice shook, but his resolve was real. I'll be your partner. For the first time since he had known her, Liara's glow brightened fully, radiating warmth. Her lips curved into the faintest smile. Then we begin, she said. The announcement spread quickly. Some Vayari were shocked, others curious. Whispers filled the halls. Humans had never been part of such a bond before. Some called it foolish. Others called it historic. Ethan ignored the whispers. He had made his choice. But deep inside, one thought haunted him. Could a human really survive the trial of resonance? He didn't know, but he was about to find out. The crystal chamber was silent except for the faint humming of energy that seemed to come from the walls themselves. Ethan stood at the center, his hands at his sides, his chest tight with nerves. Liara stood across from him, calm and steady as always, her silver blue eyes glowing softly in the dim light. Around them, the elders of the Vayari formed a circle, watching with unreadable expressions. This was it, the beginning of the bond, the trial of resonance. Ethan had faced danger before, malfunctioning machines, sudden storms on strange planets, even near accidents in the lab. But this was different. Those were things he could fix with tools, skill, and quick thinking. This trial, however, was about opening himself in a way he had never done before. He wasn't just risking embarrassment. He was risking his life, and Liara's. One of the elders raised a hand, their glowing pattern steady. The bond begins with the meeting of minds. You will open and you will share. If your thoughts clash, the resonance will break. If they flow together, the bond will hold. Ethan swallowed hard. And if it breaks? The elder's voice was calm. Then the consequences are yours to carry. Liara stepped forward, her movements graceful. She extended her hand toward him, palm open. Do not fear, she said softly. I will guide you. Ethan stared at her hand. His own hand shook slightly as he lifted it, placing it against hers. Her skin was cool, almost like smooth glass, but beneath it pulsed a warmth, an energy that thrummed in rhythm with his own heartbeat. The chamber around them dimmed, and then a flood of sensation hit him. Ethan gasped as his vision blurred, then shifted. One moment he was standing in the chamber. The next he was somewhere else entirely. He stood in a vast field of crystal grass that shimmered under twin suns. The sky burned with colors he couldn't name, and the air felt alive with humming energy. Liara was there, standing across from him, though her form shimmered faintly, as if made of light. "This is the resonance space," she explained. Her voice echoed not just in the air but in his mind. "It is where our thoughts meet. Here truth cannot be hidden." Ethan looked around, his heart racing. "So, this is inside our heads?" "Yes, part yours, part mine. A shared dream. A shared mind." At first Ethan felt exposed. What if his thoughts betrayed him? What if she saw something he didn't want her to? His insecurities, his doubts, his human flaws? Liara stepped closer, her glow steady. "Do not fear. The bond is not about perfection. It is about honesty." Ethan took a deep breath, forcing himself to steady. "All right, then. Where do we start?" She reached out her hand again. "Show me something of you, a memory. A truth." He hesitated, then closed his eyes. Slowly the memory came. His childhood on Earth, standing on a cliff near the ocean, watching waves crash against the rocks. He had been small, maybe 10 years old, and the wind had whipped his hair while his father stood beside him, telling him stories about explorers who once crossed seas with nothing but hope and courage. The scene unfolded around them, and Liara stood beside him, watching. Her glowing eyes reflected the vast ocean, and her expression softened. "This is your home," she said quietly. "Yeah," Ethan replied, his voice low. "I used to come here a lot. It always reminded me that there's something bigger out there. Something worth reaching for." Liara turned to him, her silver blue eyes meeting his. "This is why you came to the stars." "Yes," Ethan admitted. "To see what was out there. To prove humans had a place among it." Now it was her turn. Liara closed her eyes and the scene shifted. They stood in a vast crystalline cavern, walls glowing with faint blue light. At the center was a smaller version of Liara, a child, her patterns dim and uneven. She stood alone, watching other young Veyari bond with mentors while she remained apart. Ethan felt a pang in his chest. "You were alone." "Yes," Liara said, her voice calm but tinged with sadness. "I was different. My resonance was unstable. Others did not want to risk bonding with me. I learned to be strong on my own, to hide the fear, to hide the loneliness." Ethan stepped closer. "But you don't have to hide it now." For a moment their eyes met, and he felt it, the first spark of resonance. A connection, but the bond was not without challenge. As they shared more, Ethan felt waves of dissonance crash against him. When his thoughts were filled with doubt, "I'm not good enough. I'll fail. I'm just human." The space around them shook, cracks forming in the crystalline ground. Liara steadied him, her glow flaring. "You must trust yourself. I cannot carry this bond alone." Ethan clenched his fists, struggling. It wasn't easy. For years he had been surrounded by beings stronger, faster, and more advanced than humans. Doubt had become part of him. But then he remembered her words. "I believe in you." He took a deep breath, steadying himself. Slowly the crack sealed and the resonance steadied. Hours passed in the resonance space, though time felt strange here. They walked through each other's memories. Ethan showing her Earth's forests, its storms, its laughter-filled streets. Liara showed him crystalline temples, glowing festivals, and the silent weight of expectations she had carried all her life. Each memory woven together built something new. A bridge. Fragile but growing stronger. At one point, Ethan found himself standing in darkness, surrounded by echoes of his own fears, failure, loss, insignificance. Liara reached for him, her glow cutting through the shadows. "You are more than fear," she said. "You are choice. You are resilience. That is why I chose you." Ethan's chest tightened, but this time not with fear, with determination. He took her hand and the darkness shattered into light. When the resonance finally began to stabilize, the resonance space shifted once more. Now they stood in a great hall of light, the walls glowing steady and bright. Energy pulsed in rhythm around them, their heartbeats syncing together. Ethan felt her presence not just beside him but within him, calm, steady, and strong. The bond was forming. Suddenly a surge of power rushed through him, almost knocking him off his feet. He staggered, gasping. What is this? Liara steadied him, her hand glowing against his. It is the final stage. Our energies merging. Hold fast. Ethan gritted his teeth, forcing himself to stay upright. The surge was overwhelming, like fire and ice running through his veins, but he clung to her presence. He focused on her calm, her strength, her trust. Slowly, the surge steadied. The fire turned to warmth, the ice to clarity. And then, silence. Ethan opened his eyes. He was back in the crystal chamber, still standing with his hand against Liara's. The elders watched in silence, their glowing patterns steady. He felt different, lighter but also stronger. And when he looked at Liara, he didn't just see her, he felt her. A faint echo of her thoughts brushed his own, warm and steady. The elder who had spoken before finally nodded. The resonance holds. The bond is formed. Around the chamber, a ripple of surprise passed through the elders. No human had ever achieved this before. Liara turned to Ethan, her glow bright and steady. Her faint smile returned. We did it. Ethan exhaled, his chest tight with relief. Yeah, we did. But even as he stood there, catching his breath, he noticed the way some elders whispered among themselves, their expressions hard. Not everyone was pleased. Ethan realized the bond was only the beginning. What came next might be even harder. The bond had been formed, but the days that followed were anything but peaceful. Ethan could feel it everywhere he went. The whispers, the stares, the curious glances mixed with suspicion. In the crystalline streets of Vayara's capital, the glow of the citizens often dimmed slightly when he walked past, a silent gesture of doubt. Some were impressed that a human had managed to survive the resonance ritual. Others whispered that it was dangerous, unnatural, a risk that should never have been allowed. Ethan ignored most of it, but he could not ignore the way the tension grew with every passing day. Liara walked beside him often, calm as ever, but Ethan noticed the small changes, the way her glow pulsed brighter when people stared too long, the way she stood slightly closer to him in public, as if shielding him. Does it bother you? He asked one evening as they walked back from the lab, the crystal towers glowing softly around them. She tilted her head, her expression unreadable. What they think does not matter. What matters is that the bond holds. Ethan frowned. It matters to me. I feel like everyone's waiting for me to mess up. Liara stopped, turning to face him. Her silver blue eyes shone steadily. Then prove them wrong. That is what humans do, is it not? Her words struck something inside him. She believed in him, even now, even against her own people's doubts. But not everyone accepted it quietly. One evening, as Ethan entered the great hall of resonance for a routine check with the elders, a figure stepped forward from the gathered Vayari, tall. With patterns glowing like fire across his arms, the Vayari stood with sharp pride. His eyes, a harsher silver than Liara's, locked onto Ethan with open disdain. Human, the figure said, his voice low but carrying through the hall. You should not be here. The elders fell silent. Even Liara tensed. Ethan blinked, taken aback. And you are? I am Kalen, the Vayari said, his glow flaring brighter. I was meant to bond with Liara. It should have been me. The room seemed to shift colder. Ethan's chest tightened. So this was it, the rival he hadn't even known existed. Kalen stepped closer, his presence sharp like a blade. You are fragile, temporary. A human cannot hold what only a Vayari should. This bond is a mistake. Liara's voice cut through the silence, calm but firm. It was my choice, and I do not regret it. Kalen's glow flickered with anger, but his gaze stayed on Ethan. If the human truly believes he is worthy, let him prove it. One of the elders frowned. Kalen, but Kalen raised his hand. A trial, not of resonance, of worth. Let the human show he has strength beyond words, the elders murmured among themselves. Such challenges were rare, but not forbidden. Ethan's heart pounded. A trial. He wasn't trained for this. He wasn't a warrior, he wasn't one of them. Yet he saw Liara watching him, calm but steady. She wouldn't choose for him. This was his choice. Ethan straightened his shoulders. All right, he said, his voice firm though his stomach churned. I'll prove it. The trial was set for the next day in the Circle of Balance, a wide-open arena of crystalline platforms suspended above glowing rivers of energy. The space was both beautiful and intimidating, the hum of power vibrating through the air. Citizens gathered along the edges, their glowing patterns flickering with anticipation. This was more than a trial between two individuals. It had become a question of whether a human could truly stand among the Veari as an equal. Liara stood near the edge, her eyes on Ethan. She gave no words of comfort, only a steady gaze that told him, "You can do this." Ethan took a slow breath. He wasn't going to win with strength, he knew that. Kalen was taller, stronger, and trained in the physical and mental disciplines of his people. But strength wasn't the only thing humans had. Humans had something else: adaptability, ingenuity, resilience. That would have to be enough. The elder overseeing the trial raised his hand. "This is the trial of balance. To win, you must endure the challenges of skill of mind and of will. Only then will the worth of the bond be proven." The trial began. The first challenge. Skill. The platform shifted suddenly, separating and rising at different heights. Ethan and Kalen stood on opposite ends, and glowing orbs appeared in the air between them. "Bring the orbs to the center," the elder's voice echoed. Kalen moved instantly, leaping gracefully across the platforms, his movements fluid and precise. Ethan stumbled at first, his footing uncertain on the shifting crystal. The crowd murmured, unimpressed, but Ethan adapted quickly. He didn't try to match Kalen's leaps. Instead, he crouched, studying the rhythm of the platforms, then timed his steps with care. He moved slower, but steadier. Kalen reached the first orb with ease. Ethan grabbed his second later, his heart pounding, but he refused to look back at the whispers. By the time they both placed their orbs in the center, Kalen was faster, but Ethan had made it. He hadn't fallen. He had endured the second challenge. The arena shifted again and the platforms stilled. Illusions flickered around them, visions designed to confuse, distract, and break focus. Kalen moved with precision, cutting through the illusions with practiced calm. Ethan, however, struggled. The illusions showed him Earth, his old home, his family's faces calling him back. They whispered doubts. "You don't belong here. You're only human. Leave before you fail." Ethan clenched his fists. His chest tightened, but then he felt it. A faint warmth in his mind. Liara. Through their bond, he felt her steady presence, not words, but a calm echo. "You are not alone." He took a breath, pushing forward. The illusions flickered and broke as he focused, finding the truth among lies. By the end of the second challenge, he was still standing. The third challenge. Will. The final stage was endurance. The platform sank until Ethan and Kalen stood on a single wide circle above the glowing river. Energy surged upward in waves, pushing against them with crushing force. Kalen stood tall, his glow flaring as he resisted the waves. Ethan staggered at first, nearly knocked to his knees. The crowd gasped, but he refused to fall. He planted his feet, every muscle straining. His body shook. His breath came in ragged gasps, but he held on. Kalen smirked, his voice carrying over the roar. "This is your limit, human. End it now." Ethan gritted his teeth. Sweat stung his eyes, his body screamed in protest, but his mind locked on one thing. Liara, the memory of her standing alone as a child. The way she said, "I believe in you," he roared, forcing himself upright against the wave. The crowd gasped as he steadied himself, his body trembling but unbroken. Wave after wave crashed. Kalen stood strong, but Ethan, fragile human Ethan, refused to fall. And then at last the energy calmed. Silence filled the arena. Ethan stood panting, his body shaking, but he was still standing. The elder raised his hand. "The trial is complete. The human has endured. The bond holds." The crowd erupted in murmurs, some shocked, some impressed. Liara's glow flared bright at the edge of the arena, her eyes locked on Ethan with quiet pride. Kalen scowled, his glow flickering with anger, but he said nothing. He turned and walked away, his pride wounded. Ethan collapsed to his knees, exhausted but alive. Liara hurried to his side, kneeling beside him. Her hand touched his shoulder, cool and steady. "You did it." Ethan managed a weak grin. "Told you humans are stubborn." She gave him the faintest smile. "Yes, stubborn and strong." That night, Ethan lay in his quarters, every muscle aching but his heart lighter than ever. He had faced doubt, faced rivalry, and endured. The Veari might not fully accept him yet, but he had proven something. not just to them but to himself. Humans weren't fragile outsiders. They had a strength of their own. And now, with Liara by his side, he was ready for whatever came next. The city of Vayara glowed softly under its twin suns, a calm evening settling over the crystalline towers. But for Ethan, there was no rest. His body still ached from the trial of balance, and his mind was alive with thoughts of what had just occurred. He had survived. He had endured, and not only that, he had earned a place, however fragile, among the Vayari who had once doubted him. Liara walked beside him through the streets, her glow steady and comforting. She did not speak at first, letting the silence carry them both. Ethan had always appreciated her quiet presence, but now it felt different, deeper, warmer. Finally, she spoke. "You have proven yourself, not just in the trial but in the bond. The resonance is stable. You are part of it now." Ethan looked at her, awe and relief mixing in his chest. I did it?" "You did," Liara said, her calm voice carrying the weight of certainty. "And more. You showed something my people rarely see in outsiders. Courage, patience, adaptability. You showed what humans can do." He smiled weakly, feeling the ache in his limbs, but also a new strength within himself. "I guess humans aren't so weak after all." Liara's glow brightened slightly. "Perhaps not." The news of their bond spread quickly across Vayara. Some Vayari were shocked, some were curious. A few were openly hostile, refusing to accept that a human could survive the resonance. But others began to see it differently. Whispers of admiration, cautious praise, and new curiosity filled the halls of the city. Human ingenuity, courage, and resilience had been proven, not through machines or diplomacy, but through personal strength, honesty, and trust. Ethan realized that the bond with Liara had not only been a personal challenge, it had become a symbol that humans had qualities that could match and even complement the Vayari. In the days following the trial, Ethan and Liara continued to explore the resonance space together. The bond was no longer just about survival. It was about understanding, sharing, and learning. They walked through memories together. Ethan showed Liara the oceans of Earth, the forests, the cities, and the quiet streets of his childhood town. He told her stories of human history, of exploration, of struggle and perseverance. Liara, in turn, showed him the crystal temples of Vayara, the festivals of light, and the silent trials she had faced as a child. Through these exchanges, Ethan began to understand the depth of her world and her people. He saw not just their strength but their fears, their hopes, and their endless pursuit of harmony. Through it all, they laughed together, sometimes clumsily at cultural misunderstandings, sometimes at the simple joy of shared discovery. The bond was no longer a challenge. It had become a bridge. Not everyone accepted it immediately. Kalen, the Vayari who had challenged him, remained distant and cold. He refused to speak directly to Ethan and avoided the areas where the human and Liara worked together. But even Kalen could not ignore the results of the trial. He had seen Ethan endure challenges that no human had ever faced. He had felt in some small way the resonance between the two. And though he would not admit it, even he began to respect the human's determination. Ethan, however, did not dwell on Kalen's hostility. He had other priorities now. The bond with Liara had taught him something important. Influence came not from fear or strength alone, but from trust, understanding, and action. Months passed. The human engineer and the Vayari scientist became a team known across the city. Their bond an example of what could happen when two species worked together honestly and openly. They completed projects that had long been stalled, not by technology alone, but by misunderstandings and cultural barriers. Ethan's perspective, human, adaptable, creative, brought solutions that the Vayari had not considered. Liara's wisdom and precision complemented him perfectly. Their work drew attention from elders and citizens alike. Discussions began to emerge about the potential for broader cooperation between humans and Vayari. Could humans truly become partners, not just in work but in life? Ethan had once doubted himself. Now he realized that humans had a unique strength, the ability to form bonds, to endure uncertainty, and to inspire trust through perseverance. One quiet evening, Ethan and Liara sat atop one of the tallest crystal towers looking out over the city. The twin suns had set and the streets below glowed softly, reflecting the light from the crystalline structures. Liara leaned slightly against him, her hand brushing his. "You have changed how my people see humans," she said quietly. "Not all of them, but enough to make a difference." Ethan chuckled softly. "Humans always like to surprise others. I guess we do have some value after all." She smiled, faint but genuine. "Yes, and not just value. You have proven that humans can be trusted, that they can bond, endure, and inspire. That is rare among outsiders." Ethan felt a warmth in his chest deeper than pride, something like belonging. "And you trusted me first. That made all the difference." Liara's glow pulsed gently in rhythm with his heartbeat. "It was not easy. Choosing you meant breaking tradition, but I knew you were capable. And now, it is no longer just about me. It is about us, about what our bond can show the world." The following weeks brought more changes. Conversations began between Veyari leaders and human representatives. Reports of Ethan and Liara's partnership reached other regions of Veyara. Some humans on nearby stations heard of it and marveled at the story. A human surviving a Veyari trial, forming a bond that had once seemed impossible. Ethan realized that the bond was more than personal. It was historic. He and Liara had not just survived. They had shown that humans could hold their own, that they could contribute meaningfully to a world that once doubted them. And for the first time in his life, Ethan felt that humans had a real place among the stars. Even as success settled in, new responsibilities emerged. Humans who came to Veyara looked to Ethan for guidance. Veyari students studied his methods. Elders sought his input on projects involving cooperation between species. Every day he found himself challenged, not by physical trials but by the weight of expectation and the opportunity to prove that humanity had value. Liara remained his constant companion. Through the bond she could sense when he was uncertain, when he doubted himself, and when he needed support. Together they worked, laughed, and sometimes argued, but always with the underlying trust that had been forged during the trial of resonance. One evening, while walking through a quiet crystal garden, Ethan paused to watch the light shift across the towers. "Liara, do you think humans will ever truly belong here?" She considered him, her glow soft and steady. "You already do. But belonging is not given. It is earned through trust, through action, through courage, and you have earned it." Ethan smiled, feeling a deep sense of peace. "Then I guess we have a long way to go." "Yes," Liara agreed. "But together we will shape the future." He looked at her, then back at the city below. Humans had arrived on Veyara as outsiders. Some doubted them. Some even feared them, but now, humans were partners. They were capable. They were resilient. And with bonds like theirs, perhaps one day humans and Veyari could work together not just for survival, but for a shared future among the stars. Ethan took a deep breath, feeling the resonance pulse lightly through his mind, a reminder that he was no longer alone, that he had a partner and that humans had a place in this alien world. The city of Veyara glowed beneath them, and for the first time Ethan felt truly at home. And as the twin moons rose over the crystal towers, Liara leaned her head slightly against his shoulder. "Humans," she whispered softly, "may be fragile in some ways, but in others, they are extraordinary." Ethan laughed quietly, a mix of relief and joy. "We'll show them then, one step at a time." Together they looked out over the city, their bond steady, their hearts aligned, ready to face whatever came next. And in that moment, humanity had finally earned its place among the stars.